Of the steering committee. Before I get started, to the agenda, one of the things that I've always done is talk about the opioid epidemic in here and talk to our commissioners. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring awareness to the problem that we have. So I start off each meeting with talking about the epidemic. And I want to bring in Dana. Come on up. Dana is the executive director. I'm sorry, LaShawn Matthews. Dana is the director of the health department. Shan is her deputy. So Dana, what I want to do is just tell about the grants we're getting and tell a little bit about what's going on as far as the health department and how we're attacking this.
Okay, so Commissioner Craig Harris asked me to come and talk to you about a grant that the Middle Tennessee area has received from the state. We'll be getting between the counties that are considered high impact areas. So that is Rutherford, Montgomery, Cheatham, and Davidson. We'll be working and partnering together, those 4 counties, with this grant from the federal government through the state. And it's a 3-year partnership, $1.3 million each year, to be working on there's about 12 different components that they want us to attack. And we started off, because we have such a good partnership between the health department and the county schools, that we started out with prevention, looking at prevention. How can we start upstream on this issue as much as possible? There'll be other things we'll be attacking throughout the whole cycle, but right now the beginning part of our planning will be focused around prevention. We'll be getting, I talked about this in Health and Ed, so some of you have heard this, we'll be getting a new state position that will be housed at the health department that will help regulate the grant and help implement that. Because of this high impact area, kind of the 24 corridor, Interstate 24 corridor, we'll be partnering and meeting with each of those counties on a regular basis and developing things depending on the partnerships and the strong partnerships that we have in each of those communities, how we'll roll this out. Like I said, at first we're focusing on the school-based curriculum, and LaShawn's been meeting pretty regularly with the school director of schools and the curriculum educators, and these are the ladies that do the curriculum for the elementary, the middle schools, and the high schools. And so they're looking at different curriculums that we've come up with. I'm going to let her talk a little bit about one of the curriculums that we're going to be starting in some of the pilot schools.
So good evening, I'm LaShawn Dixon, and I'm honored to serve as the Assistant County Director for the Rutherford County Health Department. One of the programs that we are looking at utilizing for the next school year, 2020-2021, is Life Skills. And so it's a life skills training program, which is an evidence-based substance abuse and violence prevention program that is uniquely designed to be flexible, but also to be interactive for the students. And so this program can be taught on an intensive schedule, which is 2 to 3 times a week, to doing something a little bit more light on an extensive schedule of 1 week completing it per the program. And so both formats have actually been proven to be very effective. The Life Skills program is tested and proven effective at reducing tobacco, alcohol, opioid, and illicit drug use by as much as 80%. And so the long-term and follow-up studies have also shown that it produces prevention effects that are durable and both long-lasting. This is a top-rated substance abuse prevention program with more than 35 years of peer-reviewed scientific research, and now holds the distinction of being one of the top research-based substance abuse prevention programs in the entire country. And so providers are going to look a little different than just the traditional teacher. We hope to have also school counselors, prevention specialists, health professionals, mental health professionals, social workers, community youth educators, law enforcement officers, and also older peer leaders who are actually teaching this curriculum to our students and youth. And in the spring of 2020, we plan to provide this life skills provider training workshops to prepare our teachers, our school counselors, prevention specialists, and other providers to actually implement the state-of-the-art prevention education program and activities that are actually founded within this program. And so, as mentioned, we will pilot this program during the 2020-21 school year with one elementary, one middle, one high school, and one alternative school. And so just according to the recent reports of the economic benefit of the evidence-based prevention program, this particular program produces a $50 benefit for every dollar invested in terms of reduction of corrections costs, welfare, social service burdens, and drug and mental treatment, and increases the employment and tax revenue, which I know we're all excited about. So this program has had the highest return on investment of all the substance abuse prevention curriculum that has been studied over time, and the analysis of the return on investment of this program and other evidence-based programs is a part of a series of reports that's prepared by the Washington State Institute for Public Policy. So together, we think that this program, along with working alongside with our community partners, that we can make the most impact here in our community.
When I ran for office, one of the things that I ran on was that I was going to do whatever I can to get drug education into our curriculum. I challenged these two women, I challenged them, and they came through. And Bill Spurlock announced that we're going to do a pilot program at 3 schools, like you said. So this is something that I think is very, I don't want to say the word proactive, but definitely in the right approach to addressing this problem. We've had 41 deaths again since July 1st. We've had unbelievable amount of ODs. We had lost a guy Thursday night to addiction. So this is a problem that we had to address. And ladies, thank you so much. I mean, from the bottom of my heart as a commissioner, as a mother, as a parent, what's happened here is just, I can't tell you how excited I am. I can't tell you how happy I am. So now the work's starting, and now let's get it together and get it implemented, make this a success so it could go to every school.
Yes.
Y'all have any questions? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate y'all's support. Thank you.
All right, first thing on our agenda is to approve minutes from last month.
Mr. Chairman, I have read through those minutes, and I did not find any problems there. And in fact, I have pulled them up here if anyone would like to see them. And I would make the motion that they be approved.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you, Chairman. Next is we want to announce, Gerald Liggins as Judicial Commissioner. And we need to, do we have a motion to accept him as Judicial Commissioner?
So moved.
Second? Second?
Second.
Irving? Any, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Next thing on the agenda is we need to announce a vacancy for alternate for the beer board. And then our next, we need to, we have applicant for codes enforcement, Laura Vaught. Is Ms. Vaught here?
I'm here.
Ms. Vaught, would you like to stand up and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Laura Vaught. I grew up in the Las Casas community and I practiced law at Caius and Rogers on Maple Street. I recently moved back to Rutherford County after working in Nashville for a couple of years. And I, in my practice at the law firm, represent builders and developers. But more specifically, and interesting specific to this board, I've represented several ag businesses who have had issues with codes in various counties related to building agritourism parks. So I'm interested in serving my county now that I'm back where I grew up, and I would answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Vaught. Do we have a motion to accept Ms. Vaught?
So moved.
Have a motion, got a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Irving. Any discussion? All those in favor of electing Ms. Vaught as codes enforcement to send to the commission, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ms. Vaught, you'll go before the county commission and be voted in. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to stay because I'm in leadership Rutherford, so I'm
Don't put any added pressure. Okay, I have some announcements. First, I want to announce 4 vacancies for the Agriculture Advisory Board. Need to get those applications in. I'd like to announce 2 vacancies for the Correctional Work Center Board. I'd like to announce 4 vacancies for the PBA Board. And Commissioners, we need to appoint Kevin Lauer to the 911 Board. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Rather? Any discussion? All those in favor of appointing Kevin Lauer to the 911 Board, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
It's been a long time since I've been on the PBA, and I'm trying to do a head count internally. Isn't there only like 7 members of the PBA? Anybody recall? Is this just a roll-off based on term?
I think it's, yes, I
Term
think it's
limitation, or
term.
did everybody get mad?
No, it's term.
It's term.
It's term.
Okay, all right.
But we welcome anybody that wants to apply. All right, next on our agenda is the Airport Authority. Now, this one is, this is a situation that we got going on right now with the Airport Authority in Smyrna. I'm going to have them speak, as well as the IDB Board and Tax Assessor Rob Mitchell. What this is saying, and I will not give it justice, but I'll do the best I can, and then we'll hear from everybody. What it is simply saying is that Rob Mitchell feels that the tax abatement that we gave as a commission was to Hillwood Industries is, I want to say, void because it's not aviation joint, it's not with the aviation. So they are right now, we're having a dispute between these two as well as the IDB Board. Now, before we get into make a motion, which I also want to remind every one of y'all that in the last administration, that the County Commission and the IDB Board voted to give Hillwood a tax abatement. So I want y'all to know that up front. I want to start off, we got Mike Woods, and he represents the Smyrna Airport Authority. Mike, would you like to come up? Sure. Jack? Is it Jack or John?
John.
John?
And I'm not going to take but a minute, but John's the one with all the information, and I'm Mike Woods. I serve as the chairman of the Rutherford County Smyrna Airport Authority and also the chairman of the Joint Operations Board. And I think you fairly well described the situation that we're facing right now. We have several people here tonight that I think has information that can answer questions that the committee might have. And with your permission, Chairman Harris, I'd like to introduce the folks that are here
Absolutely.
with the Airport Authority. On the board that's here, and it serves with me, Steve Harrison and Helen Colvin and Paul Lamb. It's a 5-member airport board, and also, as you mentioned, the Industrial Development Board Chairman is here. Where did you go? Bill Young, and their attorney, Sumner Bowling. We have 2 representatives from the Hillwood Corporation here, Kirk Nelson and Chris Bowles. And in addition to John Black, who serves as our executive director of the Airport Authority, Jeff Reed is our attorney for the airport. So as the conversation involves, you'll know who's here that might be able to respond to any questions that you might have. I thank the committee for allowing us to come before you. I appreciate the work that you do on the county commission. Having served on the commission, I know that it's a very thankless job, but I commend you for your service on the commission. The airport, Smyrna Airport, is a general aviation facility that is public. It's an asset that is owned by the town of Smyrna and Rutherford County jointly under arrangement that was took place back in the early 90s.
Is that a 50-50
It is not. The Rutherford County owns 60% interest in it, the town of Smyrna 40%. So, and the board is reflected on kind of that basis. 2 of the members on the 5-member board is appointed through the mayor and county commission. 2 are appointed through the mayor and city council of Smyrna, and 1 comes from the city of Laverne. So that's a representation on the board. But we are here tonight because, as you pointed out, the property assessor is not recognizing the pilot that was approved by the county commission in May of 2016 and also approved by the Industrial Development Board that would give some tax benefit to the Hillwood Corporation and some of their buildings on the airport for the improvement of the airport. So basically, we're here to ask tonight that you approve what we're calling a contribution agreement that basically would effectively reaffirm the commitment that was made in the pilot program that was approved in May of 2000 by the county commission. So I'd like to turn it over to John Black, our executive director, to maybe give you some background and overview of the airport and where we are and what's got us to this point this evening. If that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Mike?
Thank you. Thanks for your time tonight. Really appreciate it. And I'm going to go back a little bit in time, but I'll be brief. But I'm going to take you back to 1942, and then I'll quickly bring you up to today. Okay? So I'm not going to hit every year in between. But it was important because in 1942, 3,000 acres was dedicated to build the Smyrna Army Airfield. The onset of World War II, in which it remained until 1970, at which time it was closed under a base realignment and closure procedure through the United States government, and 1,700 acres of that 3,000 was dedicated to and transferred to the Metropolitan Nashville Airport Authority. So Nashville Airport had it for many years, and in the mid to late 1980s, Nashville Airport was building a hub for American Airlines. If you recall, during that time, it was kind of before Southwest really moved in here. And there was a group of people in Rutherford County, probably sat right around this table in this room, and the county commission and our legislators and our chamber that kind of looked at that and said, you know, this is in our county. We really need to have control of this airport. It's our airport. And that's exactly what happened. After 2 or 3 years and all the documentation put in place, the Smyrna Rutherford County Airport Authority was born in 1991, and it's as Mr. Woods described, it's a 60-40 joint relationship between Rutherford County and Smyrna. And that is really the umbrella over the Airport Authority, which operates underneath that to actually operate the airport. So in 1991, that's when it was transferred. There was a great group of people. There's one person, well, there's several people here that were there then when made that happen, including Mr. Colvin and the father of our sheriff, who is here tonight. And his father, Mr. Steve Fitzhugh, who helped us along the way as well. So inside that 1,700 acres, and if I could get Paul, maybe I'll hold up the map there. It kind of, yeah, that one. It's this dotted line. So it takes in the entire airport, the golf course, and the park, which are also part of the airport, if you didn't know that. Some other non-aviation uses there. And then the most important part was this area on the west side of the airport, which we now call the Airport Business Park, which at that point in time, there you go, thank you.
Y'all see it?
So at that point in time in 91, this was just trees. There was nothing over there at all. So, you know, the airport is one of the most important tools in our toolkit in Rutherford County in attracting business to Rutherford County. So what we're talking about tonight, to me, is much, much bigger than just Hillwood. It's the airport, and it's Rutherford County, and it's Smyrna, because when the chamber gets the checklist of things that the company needs to come to our community, an airport is always on there, usually. And with 8,000 feet of runway, that knocks a lot of people off the list. It keeps us on the list. It kept us on the list when Nissan came to town. Nissan would not be there if that airport wasn't there. That was amongst their criteria of coming here. So, as I said, we work with the Chamber, we work with ECD, we work with TVA, all these folks to bring business to Rutherford County. And one thing about this piece that we developed for industrial use, you can't tell it from this map because it's flat, but there's a large hill right here, and hills and airplanes don't really mix. We've all been on airports, they're pretty flat. And to take out that hill and make it where on taxiways and runways cannot exceed a 2% slope. So to meet that 2% slope, we would have literally had to take the side of a mountain out. It's just unaffordable, unreasonable. So that's when we started looking at non-aviation uses, and it's a common thing. I mean, I just happened to get this magazine this week. It's one of our trade magazines that talks about non-aviation revenue on airports. It's very common across the United States. I'm sure you're probably familiar with the Gold Building at Nashville Airport. You know that big gold building? That's Nashville Airport's building. It's on their property. There's also many other commercial buildings on Briley Parkway that are theirs. So it's a way to diversify the airport base of business. Just like your stock portfolio. You don't want all your eggs in one basket. It allows us to do that. So to do this, we knew two big things had to be accomplished to develop that as non-aviation. One was to get it released from the FAA as a non-aviation use. And we knew this all as we were marketing the property, and we went to the FAA 2012, asked for this to be released. It's actually shown on our airport layout plan there as well, and the purple and the green is the aviation or non-aviation portion, and that's where we went to the FAA and got released from them in 2012 because that was one of the components that we needed to do this. Also, we met with Mr. Mitchell, and we wanted to make sure that that formula that was passed back in 1971, the county commission passed kind of a resolution that said if it's non-aviation, you use this formula. Well, we wanted to make sure that formula was going to, hold water for years on a long-term lease. So we did meet with him, appreciated that, and he researched it for us, and we found out it wasn't valid anymore. So that you now have to go through an IDB to do those things. I think back in 1971, maybe the IDB didn't even exist. But so we did. So that's what we did. We went the route of the IDB, wrote the pilot. It was approved by the IDB, Rutherford County, Smyrna, the comptroller. All parties saw the importance of this project for the airport in Rutherford County. They all supported it. And if you could move that, sorry, Paul, but could you move that one more time? The project is there. I mean, you can walk up to it, you can touch it. It's a beautiful development. I mean, Hillwood, they're here tonight. They invested $82 million in this project. I mean, it is a game changer for the airport and for Rutherford County. They also put in infrastructure in the form of roads, nice roads, 4-lane, divided median, and utilities that will serve our future passenger terminal that's in our master plan. It's added $280,000 to the airport's revenues. Some of that's abated for a period of time for some of the roads and things that we split a little bit of that. For phase one, it's added $168,000 for phase two. It does help meet the goals of our master plan, as I pointed out. And again, it diversifies our tenant base. It makes us more self-sustaining so that we don't have to come to the county or the city for funding. Most airports have to do that in the state of Tennessee. And in 2014, we had another challenge that was dealt to airports across the state. And a lot of the funding that we get to do projects, to maintain the airport, to grow the airport, comes in the form of a fuel tax on aviation fuel. So we have, of course, one of the biggest fuel users in the world sitting in Memphis, FedEx. And they really funded this program quite heavily. Well, they came to the legislature and were granted a cap on how much money they pay into that fund, 2014. It took out of that fund $30 million, and it left about $25 million in there per year now that we're all the airports are working with to split up among 74 airports. One runway can cost $8 to $10 million. So you can see how fast it can go. So we need private-public partnerships like this. All airports across the state need opportunities like this to really make themselves self-sustaining, again, to take the pressure off of the counties and the cities because you've got schools and all the other things to do. So, you know, we approach this in a very deliberate, well-planned. As you can see, we've been talking about doing this for years. And we found a great partner to do it. We executed it. It's there. It's producing jobs. It's producing income. It's had a very positive effect in many, many ways. And as I said, it's bigger than Hillwood. The airport is bigger than that. What it does, you know, a lot of times those companies, the first place they come when they come to make a decision on relocating to Rutherford County is that airport. We see them pull up, and we know it's usually a big deal. So, you know, without the structure of this previously approved pilot, it could still be rocks and cedar trees, and that's about what it was before. And it could be another, who knows how many years before it was developed. So we're very, we're very proud of it. It's a great project, and we just want to move forward with what was already done and granted. So I'll turn it back to Mike or whoever would like to.
Yeah, and thank you. Good overview, John. And at this time, as I said, we have what we call an agreement that the attorneys have been working on. Jeff Reed, I think, can give you the details of that. So, Jeff.
Sure. Thank you, committee members. I want to hand out copies of the proposed contribution agreement that we've talked about. Everyone have a copy of this? You know, as John and Mike have said, you know, the pilot project for the Hillwood development on the Airport Authority property was approved by the Industrial Development Board. It came before the County Commission. Many of you were commissioners at that point. You probably remember when the presentation was made. The Hillwood deal was a call for a 30-year tax abatement. Under state law, anytime you have a tax abatement for longer than 20 years, that has to be approved by the State Comptroller's Office. The State Comptroller's Office did review this matter, and on February 29, 2016, the State Comptroller approved the project. And I just read one paragraph in what he said with respect to his approval. He said, based on his review of the request letters, the sublease agreement, the ground lease agreement, and the analysis, I've determined that the development will bring many benefits to Rutherford County. Specifically, I note that the sublessee is independently financing the development, and the Airport Authority will own all the improvements at the end of the entire lease term. Therefore, the pilot, in my opinion, is in the best interest of the state of Tennessee. So that was a approval issued by the State Comptroller on February 29, 2016, approving this pilot that the County Commissioner approved for the Hillwood project. And so that approved the abatements proposed under the pilot. Also, I would note there's been some questions about the property being released for non-aviation purposes. As John said, back in 2012, it was really released by the FAA for this portion of the airport for non-aviation purposes. And there was some emails exchanged when this issue came up, and I'll just read from one here, which is from Philip Braden, who is the acting manager of the FAA in D.C., who oversees airports and our region. But he said, this is one that was sent to Mr. Mitchell, and he says, he apologizes for the delay in sending this reply. He says, upon further review of this matter, the property in question is airport property, the FAA approved the Airport Authority's request to designate the area as non-aeronautical property. This designation allows sponsors to gain revenue towards being self-sufficient. For this reason, local municipalities normally exempt airport property from local taxes. However, this is a local decision. So that came from the acting manager of the Federal Aviation Administration, which is the federal regulator over airports, with respect to the specific property we're talking about here, where the Hillwood property is. So I'll just give that additional background to you. With respect to this contribution agreement, this is a document that Chris Bowles of Bradley Arant, he's with the law firm who set up the original pilot in regards to this deal, put together to try to preserve the terms of the original deal with Hillwood. And what this contribution agreement provides is that basically, in the event the assessor feels the need to go ahead and assess property that is approved for a pilot, the assessor can do that. But in the event there's tax revenue collected from that under the pilot, that money will be basically come to the county and be transferred back to the IDB to be administered by the IDB as it sees fits pursuant to the pilot program that was adopted by IDB. So what this contribution agreement does, basically it allows the assessor to go ahead and do what the assessor believes he needs to do with respect to collection of taxes, for those taxes to be remitted to the county and to the city of town of Smyrna in this case. But in that case, the taxes collected that would otherwise have been exempted will be remitted over to the IDB to be administered as part of the pilot. And this is a contribution agreement that does not pertain just to the Hillwood project, but would pertain to any pilot projects that have the similar type issue arise for them in the future. So this is a contribution agreement that would cover, should this happen in another pilot project, it would govern that situation. So this is something you can consider. It's up to the county commission to decide whether it wants to do this or not. This is kind of a business solution to the issues with respect to the tax appeals that are going on pending with the State Board of Equalization now that may help resolve the issue if the county commission is in favor of doing anything about it. So this is the contribution agreement that Mike Woods was talking about.
I've got a few questions. So this is essentially a circle. The money comes right back around to where it started.
Correct. It allows the property assessor to assess the taxes that the assessor believes are owed with respect to property. So it allows that to be done. But those funds are remitted to the IDB. The IDB then remits those funds back to the ultimate developer. So it's a circular type arrangement that allows the assessor to do what the assessor believes he needs to do with respect to collection of taxes. There's no liability in the county here other than to transmit those funds on to the IDB. And there's no obligation on the IDB other than to transmit those funds pursuant to whatever arrangement it enters into under the pilot with the developer of the property.
And you mentioned some appeals. Who's actually suing whom? Or who's...
The current status of the matter, there was the pilot was approved with the county. The tax bill went out to one of the sublessees of one of the Hillwoods buildings, which is a Lowe's-related entity, which is Lowe's, the Home Depot type of store. They were one of the sublessees out there on the property. They got the initial bill. They filed the initial appeal on the taxes with the local Board of Equalization. Initially, the Airport Authority was not aware of that bill even being sent, nor was Hillwood aware of the bill being sent because the bill went to the sublessee, which is not unusual. But when the Airport Authority learned of it in January of this year, the Airport Authority and Hillwood joined in the appeal of that tax bill that was issued, and that's currently pending before the State Board of Equalization. So that is the current status legally with respect to the matter. There's an appeal filed before the State Board of Equalization by the Airport Authority and Hillwood and Lowe's, basically with respect to this issue of whether that property should be exempt from taxes under the pilot, or what taxes should be applied to them. So that there's no date set for that yet. That will be heard maybe sometime this next summer of 2020. There could be appeals thereafter, so it could go on for another year or two thereafter. So it may be a while before that process works its way through.
And do you have any idea how much has been spent on legal fees on both sides?
I don't, when it came, I don't know on the property assessor's side. When the issue emerged from there's very few attorneys that work on this area of taxation. It's a very specialized area of taxation that is, when you're talking about these industrial developments and leases and sublessees in regards to property. So the Airport Authority and Hillwood have both engaged an attorney named Joe Gibbs, who's a tax lawyer in Nashville, to represent the Airport Authority and Hillwood in regards to the tax appeal. There's an attorney for Lowe's who's also involved out of Memphis, who's hired by Lowe's to represent them. And then the assessor's office is also involved with the appeal as well. I think the Airport Authority has spent about $35,000, I think, to point.
Well, our share of 20, right at 20.
Okay, I'm sorry, $20,000 in legal fees so far is what the Airport Authority has incurred to date. Of course, that bill will be more if we go through with the full appeal.
So, if we don't resolve this matter, is it safe to say that Hillwood would be suing the county?
I don't know what Hillwood's position would be. Hillwood has not made any statements implying they would sue the county if this pilot is not acknowledged and recognized. I don't know what would happen. Hillwood has been very good to work with in regards to this project from the beginning. They have done everything that they have told the Airport Authority would do, from the construction to the timing of the development, to the payment of monies that are owed for leasehold payments to the Airport Authority under the project. Hillwood has done everything Hillwood was supposed to do under this arrangement with the Airport Authority. Ultimately, what would happen if the pilot is not acknowledged, I can't say, but we've not had any threats from litigation from Hillwood at this point.
Mr. Black, how much money has Hillwood put in this, your vision?
$82 million.
Does that include utilities?
That includes the utilities and the roads, infrastructure that, again, kind of helps our master plan overall.
And your master plan would be for us to be a commercial airport?
Yes, sir.
So if we did not do business with Hillwood, how many years does that set us back?
We've been marketing that property for the past 15 years. And until Hillwood came along, we never could get to the finish line. We're in a good economic time. We want to continue that. We want to continue to build. There's a fourth building they would build tomorrow. They would start on it, and it's in that last little piece of property.
They built a fourth building?
Yep.
And how many jobs would that create?
I don't have the number of jobs for the fourth building, but the first three buildings combined is around 400. Kurt?
All right.
Maybe like mid-2020 when they're all up and running.
Any more questions?
I'm just not sure how we ended up in this situation. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around why this is an issue. We're having to add these extra steps in here for something that seems like
Agreed.
just redundancy. But
Pretty much, and to my understanding, and believe me, Jeff, you would know this better as well as Rob, we're basically suing ourselves.
that's exactly what we're doing.
Would that be a fair assessment?
Well, the Airport Authority is involved with an appeal, a tax appeal, with the assessor's office. Yes.
All right?
It's using public funds on both sides.
We're against ourselves
Yeah,
with our own
that's what
money.
I'm
This
saying.
makes no sense at all.
Well, then a couple of years ago, did you come up here to borrow money, or we granted you,
That was a pilot that we came and
right?
that you approved in April of 2016. And we have, the airport has borrowed money from the city and the county on a 60-40 split, but we've always paid it back with interest. So we've not, our goal at the airport is not to be a burden on our governments, but to be self-sufficient, self-sustaining. And this project is exactly what we need to continue on that basis.
So if we
It's
take this
important.
project out, then you would be more,
Oh, it's a big setback. It's a cloud over the airport's development, a black cloud. And I think it would leave a stigma over the county as far as what you say you're gonna do, and then if you don't do it, it's not good. It's not right. We need, I'd urge you to act on this.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. So, Mr. Black, you said you're anywhere between $20,000 to $35,000 in attorney fees? Would that be correct?
Airports Authority, yeah.
Bill,
2020.
are you in that range as well?
No, sir, we're not a party to any of that litigation, so we have no legal expenses.
So your attorney right here is not?
I hope I never will.
I'll give you time to speak. I'm just trying to make a point. Rob, do you have any idea where your law fee, attorney fees are?
Close to that. We're probably less than 5.
Anybody, any more questions?
I think, well, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Cooch, go ahead.
I think we owe it to Rob to hear
Yes, sir.
his side of the story. He is a diligent and always protective of the county's money. I'd like to hear from him.
Absolutely, and we will.
Okay.
I'm just simply trying to get in my head how much money that we're looking at. So is there any objection with that, or y'all good with that? Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere.
Mr. Mitchell?
Thank you. I'd like to invite Bobby Lee, our attorney, up, and have Russell Key, my chief deputy, come over as well.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Can y'all give us our name, give us your names, please, again?
My name's Bobby Lee. It's Robert, but I go by Bobby. I'm an attorney. I practice in this area, have for 35 years. I worked for the comptroller's office for 30 years. I was general counsel, and now I'm retired from that and in private practice.
Russell Key, Chief Deputy for the Property Assessor.
Rob Mitchell, property assessor.
All right, Mr. Mitchell, you free to go.
Actually, that's a pretty good indication right there of the airport. We did meet with John back in, I believe it was it December of 14, John? It's been a while. I had to go back and look at my emails to try to figure out. We did discuss that the 7.5% would not be valid for a couple of reasons. One, it wasn't applicable to the 1,700 acres that's outlined there. It was for a separate bit of parcels that were originally transferred to Rutherford County prior to the transfer from the Metropolitan Airport Authority in '91. It wouldn't have taken effect, wouldn't have been applicable anyway because, as Mr. Lee pointed out, the rules that govern a municipal airport, which is what Davidson County is, and a regional airport are different by statute, and they have different abilities and different rules that they operate under and different authorities that they can do. So that being given, we need to find out what is permissible. You can have non-aviation use. However, if it is non-aviation related, it is assessable by statute. And that's what we wanted to convey, that there would be an assessment. We don't know how much it is, and we won't know how much that assessment would be on a leasehold interest until we receive the leases and the contracts so that we can determine if there is a leasehold interest. And there may not be a leasehold interest to assess. The statute requires that if there is property that we are aware of, we must assess it. If there is a leasehold interest, we must determine it. If there is not sufficient evidence to determine if there is a leasehold interest, then we're to assess it fee simple. which is what we did. We are still waiting to get the leases. Mr. Lee's been in contact with Mr. Gibbs, has requested the leases. They said they would provide them to us. They were refused to us at the county board. The attorney, I believe, Mr. Key was there. What was his words exactly when we requested?
Well, actually, it was the representative agent for Evans and Petrie said that they weren't relevant.
So we have on the record that the agents representing the individuals that could provide us with the information to make a determination and say, we see it, there actually is nothing there to assess, we're not transparent and weren't forthcoming. We were obligated to assess a value. And that's all we've ever requested. We just requested the information to do our due diligence by statute so that we can make a proper determination of what's there. That's all we've ever asked. We've been asking it now for over 2 years. If anybody has any questions about particulars, I'm sure we'll do our best to answer them.
Rob, will you define for me what a leasehold interest is?
A leasehold interest is developed whenever someone leases a property below market rent. So if you're leasing something below market rent, it creates a leasehold interest. And the leasehold interest is assessable under Tennessee statute.
There's a series of cases that goes back in a statute. Excuse me. In '73, our statutes changed and our Constitution changed as it concerning property taxation. And there was what was called Question 3 put before the citizens. It was adopted, it amended our Constitution that requires that all property be subject to taxation with very few limitations, exemptions. Government property was not a mandatory exemption. It allowed the General Assembly to create an exemption for government-used properties, and they have. It's government property that is used for a public purpose. Public purpose is defined in some other cases, and we just had a case, Mr. Gibbs and I, with the city of Clarksville, with the marina up there and restaurants and stuff that they brought in, the city did, and because that's not a public purpose, it was a private marina, and it was open to public restaurants, so that's not a public purpose. So that's taxable. But the leasehold interest is, by statute, when the underlying interest in the owning the property, the fee simple interest, is exempt, then it's basically that people cannot use government property for a profit. If they do, then there's a gap there between contract rent and market rent that is subject to taxation. The Airport Authority in Nashville is a perfect example. You might remember that there was a Woolworths down Murfreesboro Road. That case went to the board and stuff. It was Shack and Cypress had leased that. And he had built the Woolworth, and it's now been a haunted house and everything else right there on Murfreesboro Road. About the end of the runway, that case basically said that he was using public property for a profit. So therefore, the gap was subject to taxation as a leasehold interest. That's the basic nuts and bolts of a leasehold interest. In this property, first determination is whether or not the fee simple is being used for a public purpose, and whether or not the Airport Authority was, within the statute, allowed to have the fee simple exempt. We've looked at that. The attorneys have provided us documents of that. The second test is whether or not there's an accessible leasehold. This property is being leased from the Airport Authority to the Industrial Development Board, to Hillwood, to private individuals, to other private entities, Lowe's and some other entities. So there's a chain there. You need to look at all those leases to see, determine the market rent compared to the contract rent. And that's what we're trying to do. Mr. Mitchell has the authority and obligation to assess all assessable property of this county. And so he did that under his obligations for that. So, as far as the contribution agreement, it does seem like a circle. You're absolutely right. It does seem like money coming in and going back out. But local governments do not have the authority to just exempt or waive property taxes. If you did, that would, you could have a lot of burden on you to exempt property taxes. So if it's determined by the state board, administrative law judge, that this property, that there's some assessable interest there, Mr. Mitchell is obligated to make an assessment by law. What the county does with that money, it's like any other funds. They can contribute it, they could dedicate it to education or whatever they want to. That's the transparency of what you're doing with the revenues that the citizens require. So the contribution agreement, while it seems like it's a circle, sometimes those have to be done because the legalities, the assessments are legal and they're binding and they're required. So, but right now, there's not really a lawsuit. As Mr. Reed pointed out, there's an appeal pending before the State Board of Equalization, which is the administrative body that determines the taxability of the values of property in this state.
Any questions?
So only the gap, if there is one, is subject to the tax
At least so.
assessment.
If it's determined the fee simple interest is exempt and all the structures are exempt as the fee simple, it's the gap between what's called market rent and contract rent. Market rent's determined by the markets. If it's $5 and something a square foot, and when you look at all the obligations and they're only paying $3 a square foot, then there's a gap of $2 a square foot, and then that's the assessable leasehold interest. And that's what the case law, going back to 30 years or more.
Yeah.
So,
And so if that was the case, then the county can decide what they want to do with that.
yeah, it's general revenue. It's general revenue.
Or the tax off that too.
It go into the normal stream,
Yeah.
and then the county commission can use that for any purpose they see fit, any lawful purpose they see fit.
So the tax bills that were sent, are they guesstimates or what?
No,
No, they were produced on value.
they're produced on the value of the structures that are there.
Any idea of those values?
For that value,
Yep.
best I recollect, it was about $37 million is what went out on the value of the warehouse improvements there.
And it was sent to Hillwood,
It was
correct?
sent to Hillwood,
Yeah.
at care of line.
How much do we calculate if it's completely built out would be in taxes at today's rate?
I think that building at 37 million was 600 and some odd thousand square feet. I think their projections are somewhere around another, a complete total of about 1.2 million, something like that. Does that sound correct?
Square footage?
Yeah, about 1.2 million on the square footage, on the warehouse square footage. Yeah, I think that's about where it bolts out at.
That tax, what's that in tax dollars?
I need a calculator for that, but it's a large number.
I think we'd done one and it was an estimate of somewhere around $1 million in taxes.
Well, how do Nissan and other players on this base will relate to this formula? Because I know they're out there.
Yes, the
Yeah, I know
leaseholds,
they're out
there's
there.
several leaseholds in this
Yeah.
state that's
Oh,
accessible.
yeah. Why are we
And-
just looking at Lowe's? Are we going to look at
No, they're-
Nissan?
I think the county looks at them all
Look at them all.
and determine whether or not there's market value. It's the obligation of the lessee is what's really determining whether or not there's a leasehold. You have the rent they pay, but we've also determined what is imputed rent, which is typical landlord expenses that have been passed on, and those are given credit to. So, but I don't know how many leaseholds you have, but across the state, there's several companies that pay leasehold. We was involved with one with Saturn, and I was involved in that one back 15, 20 years ago.
I guess I'm interested in Nissan because I know they're out
yes,
there.
sir.
And I know we gave them a tax exemption deal, and I know they went through the Industrial Development Board, and I know they had a slew of attorneys. So how did they miss it? I guess is what I'm asking.
Well, there's always a phrase, generally a phrase in the lease agreements that they're giving credit. Any payment in lieu of tax that they're agreed to pay, they're giving credit for any lawful taxes that are assessed. So they're giving credit for that. And that's pretty well, that goes back to a gentleman by the name of Ogden Stokes that really originated all these payment in lieu of tax agreements whenever he was an attorney in Nashville and stuff. And so there's language that they get credit, but they recognize there's a possibility they may be a assessable leasehold. When you have a shorter term, the leasehold is
Nissan
less
had no
likely.
short term.
Well, the law now requires anything over 20 years to go through the comptroller for approval as a state thing. There's a few of those. Nissan has one on the battery facility that we worked with Mr. Bolin on, I believe, when I was at the comptroller's office. They were given a shorter term, over 20 years, but less than 30, I believe. I can't remember if we gave a 30-year approval of that or not. But when you compress that term and their requirements go up, that negates a leasehold assessment, basically, because the leasehold, the gap is not there.
I guess I'm looking at Mike, because I know he was there from the original deal, especially the Nissan deal. And I guess what I'm asking, he's saying long-term, 20 years, and short-term, this and that. And I know Nissan been there since '81, am I right?
A long time.
They've been serious.
And so,
Since 80, yeah,
so
80.
have they received a tax bill or whatever?
You know, I don't know. They had a pilot program to attract them. I think it's pretty common to attract good industries to the locale. You provide some tax incentives, and normally you do that through a pilot program.
So do you consider this project, or what we got going on now, a good project? I guess why is it just coming up now? I guess is what I'm asking.
We really thought that we had crossed all the T's and dotted the I's in the initial process of dealing with Hillwood, and we make certain commitments to Hillwood to come to our community and make improvements, build those warehouses, and help us with the infrastructure on the airport. And we didn't realize that we would have this problem. It was a surprise to us when we found out about the assessment that was being made by the property assessor on these buildings and things. But this is the, what we're asking you to approve is the contributions agreement, which is a fix to the problem, I think, that will, I think, meet the goals of Hillwood and the Airport Authority to keep our project moving.
What is your feelings about this circle, so to speak? Are y'all in agreement of that?
I don't have a dog in that hunt.
So you assess the taxes.
I assess the
You
property.
collect the taxes, they go to the
I don't
IDB
collect.
board.
I assess the property.
Yes.
You all assess the taxes on it. TEB collects them. I just tell people how much it's worth and if there's something there to assess and assign a value. That's all we do. And if we had the information, there may not be anything there to assess, but we simply do not know because the contracts and the information we need has not been forthcoming for 2 years.
What I'm concerned with is this commission voted to allow this. So where was this, then?
We were never talked to after the deal was set up. There was supposed to be a meeting between myself and Mr. Black in February, and he had to cancel. I emailed him back and said, we'll be fine to meet with you when your schedule's better, just let me know. That was the last communication that we had.
Well, we came before all the committees. We came to
We
the
weren't
IUB.
notified of that. I mean,
I apologize, but we
You
were
know.
notified of tax notice either.
communication is sometimes difficult to get.
It's not uncommon for county commissioners to vote on payment in lieu of tax agreements. And a matter of fact, the statute says that they're supposed to be involved in those. The leasehold, though, is something that people, unless you practice in this area, you really don't understand the assessments and the possibilities of that. Mr. Gibbs, Mr. Bowles, and people that practice in that, you look at those, and so the leaseholds are not forgivable at this time. I think the legislature has looked at trying to soften that going forward and stuff, but we've had this situation. When I was with the comptroller's office, we had a lot of projects that the county approved, but there's also a leasehold because of the way it was structured. There's an assessable leasehold there, and the assessor has no authority but to do that assessment. So the Nissan, the term, it was shortened to 20 years. I'm trying to think of when we shortened that. We shortened the terms to 20 years. Probably it was right around the time Dale came, because Dale came to Wilson County and Davidson County and got a 40-year abatements. And at the time, some of the state senators said, why are we giving computer companies 40-year tax-free abatements whenever, 40 years ago, we didn't know what a computer was. So, and plus, you have counties competing against each other for these, and some counties was willing to give, we have one county give a 99-year tax abatement. And so the legislature saw fit to just say, everybody's at a 20-year maximum on payment in lieu of tax agreements. And then if there's a big enough project that it's of state interest, the Commission of ECD and the Comptroller's Office can approve an extension beyond the 20 years. Most of those are 25 years that's been approved. This one's a 30, it sounds like. And that's, I can think of one other 30-year project that I was involved with that we approved. It may have been the Nissan battery, but there was one that went 30 years. Most of them, whenever they came to the Comptroller's Office, they was approved for a maximum 25 years to get. And again, they try to put the counties on uniform, same standards of 20-year terms.
Mr. Chairman, as I sit here and look around this room, I see enough individuals that's gone through enough law books that fill this building. And we discussed a lot of situations here. But I have to go back and look at the IDB board that comes in and asks for what they have been given the directive to do. And we as a county commission says, we want you to do that. And in 2016, I sat on that commission and approved it. And that's where we headed, and that's where we took off. And now this has developed. We can look at communications, and did communications happen or what, but I know as a commissioner, I do not sit on every committee. But I do watch all the agendas, and if something relates something to my public safety committee, I'll show up every now and then, and I pay attention to it and see where we go. Okay, we're here now. We're in this now. And I don't want IDB to be involved in this anymore another time. And I don't want our airport authority to be involved in this again either. So I think we go ahead and fix this the best way that we can now. And yes, we want our tax assessor to come up with those funds too. But I think we're going to sit here and go in another circle, looks like to me. And I think we've been offered an opportunity to possibly fix this and go ahead and fix it. I don't like the word fix it. I come from the farm, and when you say fix it, that means baling wire is involved. And here we go with a piece of baling wire to do what we should have done at the very beginning and got it right. And $82 million is
A lot of investment.
a lot of money. That's a lot of rock turned over. And that's my opinion right now. That's the way I see it.
Is there a motion, Chairman?
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
So, if I'm understanding it right, is the problem with the sublease of Hillwood?
It's a possibility that you got to look at whether or not the property is being used, and there's a gap between the contract rent and the market rent. And until we get those leases to see what they're actually being leased at, Mr. Gibbs is working with us. I've talked to Mr. Gibbs today, as a matter of fact. And he's getting us the documents. So he did not have those leases. He's got the leases that the county was involved with, but he is getting us all the leases.
Just so everyone, when the IDB grants a pilot, generally the statute says they own the property, right?
Well, the IDB has to maintain ownership because that's the only way the exemption flows is if it was owned by an exempt entity and it's used for a public purpose. The courts have said
And that's part of it. There's a lease. The land wasn't sold. It was leased. So,
But there didn't seem to be a lot of controversy when they were dropping $82 million into the airport. You know, I mean, you know, but now they've spent $82 million refining the airport, making it a commodity for our businesses to look at to come to Smyrna in Rutherford County, you know, when they have private jets and stuff. And, you know, now all of a sudden, you know, it's a big problem after they've already, you know, spent $82 million. Why wasn't it picked up before then?
I don't know why they didn't draw the contract that way. We picked it up as soon as we knew about it.
Chair's going to allow one question only, one statement, all right? So would you like to go ahead?
Yeah, I'm Chris Bowles. I'm an attorney. I work with Mr. Gibbs, with the Bradley Law Firm. Just a quick clarification. We've heard a lot about leaseholds and leasehold tax assessments. Where we are at this precise moment in time is the Airport Authority has been assessed tax as a taxpayer. So the Airport Authority is typically a tax-exempt entity, and there is a current ongoing dispute over the wording of the Airport Authority's exemption statute. So there's all sorts of documentation that happens in payment in lieu of tax transactions around the leases, and that documentation was done just like it would have been for Nissan or any other entity coming forward. The unique issue in this is that the Airport Authority cannot sell its property. And as a result, there's a ground lease structure where the Airport Authority has retained ownership. It's our position and our opinion that the Airport Authority should still be exempt in this circumstance, and that's how the deal was designed. The issue is that the Airport Authority is being assessed tax, although it's a governmental entity, saying it's assessed tax outside of its airport purpose. And so it may be that the assessor's office is looking to assess a leasehold tax in the future, but that's not the issue we're dealing with right now. Right now, the issue is that the Airport Authority is a taxpayer that was under the belief that it was exempt, and it is being told it's not. That's the appeal, and that's what we're trying to solve.
So we're taxing ourselves.
Correct.
I don't think that's accurate.
Commissioner Rather?
Mr. Mitchell, correct me if I'm wrong, I may have misunderstood you, that this property, originally, there was a portion that was tax exempt. right?
Only if it's used for public general aviation.
Okay. So the issue is these buildings were built by Hillwood, now it's taxable. So I did misunderstand. I thought originally there was a portion that was exempt, but now this portion is being used that was not up under that original
No,
agreement.
it was part of the original 1,700 acres. They requested in 2012 for it to be used for non-aviation purposes, which the FAA granted them that. I'm not going to get into trying a case right here. They could have requested a modification of their charter, and the FAA regularly grants that to sell off property. So that would have been a problem as far as that goes. I don't know. John's much better versed in how that works than I, but it has happened. There is cases where there are leasehold interests on multiple airports that have been done for industrial development. The FAA does encourage, but they do not say that it's not accessible. Communication is vital.
Right.
And we tried very hard to work with the airport authority to get the information that we need to do our job. That's all we've ever requested.
Well, you answered my question, but Commissioner Reed was talking, and I totally agreed with the comments he made, and then I heard some comments that Mr. Black, is that you had me at the moment you said you don't come to the county for funding. You had me right there.
I mean that, too.
Y'all kind of just had a discussion on the sidebar that they've been to all the committee meetings and you weren't made aware. My concern is this: I want everybody to win, and I think everybody can win. Am I incorrect in saying that? Okay, so my problem is there seems to be a judge or a court that we're waiting on some decisions. There's an appeal.
They appealed, and it wasn't the original assessment and tax bill went to. Didn't go to the airport authority. It went to
Hillwood in their Memphis address.
Yeah,
The
so-
care-of line, secondary line.
Right. So the airport hasn't been assessed. The airport is not being told to pay any taxes. That's factually not what happened. Hillwood got the bill. Hillwood is being assessed. So trying to create a false narrative that we're suing ourselves and we're taxing ourselves, that would be incorrect, and it would be political. It would be a political ploy.
Is it possible that, I think it's already been said that there was, maybe the communication could have been better, that the groups get back together and have full communication, full disclosure,
we welcome
full
that.
transparency, and kind of come to agreement?
We absolutely.
The reason I ask that, if we make a decision, is that decision going to be out the door because this appeals says something different? Are we wasting our time here is where I'm getting? When the way I've understood it, it sounds like a group of extremely smart, intelligent people far above me could sit down and discuss and have that full communication and work this out. And I kind of get what we're doing here, and I agree with Commissioner Stevens that it's just going around in a circle. If that fixes it, I'm fine with that, but I'm concerned about this appeals coming in. Okay, then that messed this up, and this means nothing. Now what do we do? If that makes any sense. Part of them is confused, and part of them kind of gets it, and I think men and women can sit down and work it out.
Everything is better when everything's transparent, and say if you're buying a piece of property, most of the time you will ask, what's it going to do with my taxes? I'm closing on a house. What are my property taxes going to be? This is what, that you make that call, we get them all day long. We get calls every day from industries wanting to know what their tax liability is going to be when they get here. We welcome those conversations. We want full transparency. We don't want anybody to be surprised when, when there's not full disclosure and there's not transparency, there are issues that will arise when someone does their job.
I just had those comments trying to straighten up, clear up the muddy water there for a minute in my head.
Well, I'm in agreement with Commissioner Reed, and we have an opportunity here for a compromise. So can go on and on. It's time to, we've heard everybody. So is there any motion on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the contribution agreement and send it on to the county commission.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Would you add to that, that we let our county attorney look at it prior to?
Yes.
Is that a motion to amend?
Motion to amend it.
Second?
Yeah, I will second the amendment to the motion.
All right, we got a motion to add county attorney review before sent to the full commission. Any discussion on that?
Just a question.
Sir?
It looks like we have 3 different groups in here. Not us, but everybody's okay with this. The airport authority, Mr. Mitchell?
I haven't seen it, but it's not my job
okay.
to make that determination.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, yes, Commissioner. The IDB took this issue up last week and approved the contribution agreement and to send it forward to the county. So IDB has approved that document.
Thank you.
Any more questions? All right, we're discussing the amendment. Any discussion? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now we're back to the original motion to send the this contribution agreement to the committee with the amended motion. So, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, gentlemen. Next thing will be taken to the full commission with review. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Rob.
Take care.
You always get some bad trouble.
I was getting bits and pieces. Wow.
All right, gentlemen.
He jumped out when you jumped out.
Let's get on to Thank you, gentlemen.
Good to see you, Mike.
All right, next on the agenda is to approve the wording on the new policy on vaping. Ms. Stevenson?
You got tired yet?
It's easy, you pick me up.
Yeah.
I have some cough drops I have for dinner. I'll be happy to share them with anyone you're waiting for. So the only thing that we're looking at is the language on we brought forth last month and the month before last. Nick has reviewed it as well as myself and your chairman have reviewed it. So we've added in here free or hand-rolled cigarettes, e-cigarettes, or other vaping devices. That is language is added into the smoking and other tobacco-related products. Also, we have added that they are to stay and not smoke within 25 feet of an entranceway or in the designated area, wherever the designated area might be. Some of the buildings have actually moved it even further from the designated areas. 25 feet, such as I think the Juvenile Detention Center has moved it 25 feet from actually the rec yard, so that it would be further away from the area. The Emergency Medical Services Board in 2014 required that it had to be within 10 feet of an ambulance, so nobody can smoke in an ambulance or within 10 feet of any doors it opens. The final item was time away from the employee's workstation to smoke, use an e-cigarette or other vaping device to use smokeless tobacco product must be done off the clock. Under the Fair Labor Standards Act, the county is allowed to round our time. 7 minutes or more is considered rounding to the next quarter hour. So it would be my recommendation that the departments have called, and several of them said that they just want to regulate that within their departments, but as long as the employees are off the clock, it will round it, and their time will be assessed based upon the rounding factor.
All right, anybody understand any questions? Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Kush, do I have a second?
Yes,
Commissioner Rather? Is there any discussion? All those in favor saying they're passing this, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this will be passed on to the county commission. Thank you, Ms. Stevenson.
Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There you go. All right, next on the agenda is the Iran Diversement Act, Public Acts 109. This is brought to us by the mayor, and what this simply says, and I'll read this to you. By submission of this bid, each bidder and each person signing on behalf of any bidder certifies, and in the case of a joint bid, each party thereto certifies as to his own organization under penalties of perjury that to the best of his knowledge and belief that each bidder is not on the list created pursuant to State Law 12-12-106. Simply saying that you cannot purchase or bid on anything without signing this form first, and that you are not doing business or association with the list created by the law. Is there any questions on this? Do I have a motion to adopt?
Move to approve or adopt.
Commissioner Rather?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Irvin. Any discussion? All right, gentlemen, all those in favor of sending this to the floor, County Commission, I apologize, send them by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next on our agenda is Miss Ashley McDonald. Come on up. She's our new PIO, and she has put together a policy for this office. And I want you to explain it to everybody. Don't go word for word on everything, but explain it the best you can.
I believe in the KISS method.
Thank you.
Keep it short and sweet. Basically, the mayor's vision for this position was for the county to speak with one voice. Obviously, I can't be everywhere at once. And so what this structure allows is for unofficial spokespersons, which I've labeled in here communications representatives designated by a department head or an elected official, to act in that capacity, but filtering certain things through me, and then also obtaining a recommended minimum training. This includes department heads and elected officials that are going to be speaking on their own behalf, so we can all speak with that one voice. And then it has some media tips in here for people who may have to be on camera but don't have time for that training just yet.
So if somebody wants to interview one of the county commissioners, we need to pass it to you first?
Yes. If it could possibly have negative implications, or if it's a large enough story that it's going to receive a lot of media attention, just a heads up to myself and then also the county mayor's office.
Okay, does that include telephone calls for reporters?
If you feel uncomfortable about it, you probably need to call me.
Well, that's a given.
If it makes you feel uncomfortable, then you can consult with me first.
Well, we appreciate it. Is there any questions?
Well, I've kind of got a problem with that. As a commissioner, I don't know that I should have to contact the mayor's office or someone else to give a statement to the media.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if
if whatever the story is, if it has the potential to be negative, or a negative reflection on the county in any way or something like that. If it's a personal matter, you don't have to call us unless it's going to, reflect negatively on the county in any way. It's just a heads up. We're not saying yes or no. You can't speak to the media. It's just a courtesy call, basically.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to adopt this policy?
Make a motion.
Commissioner Urban, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Reed. Do I have a, I'm sorry?
This is going to the full commission, right?
Yes, sir. I have a motion to adopt this policy to send to the county commission. Is there any discussion? All those in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Ms. Love. All right, next on the agenda is Infrastructure Committee report. I'll turn it over to the Honorable Commissioner Cush.
I'll keep it super quick. We've had 2 meetings. Both have been really well attended with real estate professionals, development professionals, and we had one legislative representative, Tim Rudd, came to our last meeting. We're trying to find ways that we can alter state legislative acts in which we have some more freedom in terms of trying to find some money outside of the development tax or increasing property taxes or the wheel tax. We've gotten some good feedback. We are still trying to find a way. It's pretty safe to say it's going to be a long process that's going to take a lot of conversation with our friends in Nashville. It's something we can't wait till the last minute, jump up and down and expect an answer. So it's going to take a lot of kumbaya moments with our legislative body.
Commissioner Cush, I've taken a lot of interest in this. One of the things, I noticed that you have gotten the realtors involved, the homeowner association and the realtors. And what about developers? How's that going?
It's going really well.
They're actually talking?
They are actually talking. They understand the position that the county's in, and they are offering, let's say they're not, let's just say they are not slamming the door in our face. They are offering some ideas and suggestions, and I think it's been very positive up to now. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
We have another meeting in a few weeks, and we have asked some other legislators to come, and so we can bounce some more questions, and we'll see how that turns out.
I'm just curious, what did Representative Rudd say?
You can read his comments in the DNJ. He basically said a couple things. One was that we have to have better communication with that group. He kind of blamed us, and then I turned around and blamed them. Because we have, we chat with those folks once or twice a year, and we tell them our needs and our wants and our issues, and then we kind of don't hear from one another again for another 9 months or 12 months, and then we come up with the same questions and same needs and same wants year after year after year. And Representative Rudd said, it's really not the way to get what you want. You got to be more engaging. Come see us more, perhaps even get a lobbyist, and spend some more time with us, which made sense. He explained, and we had cities there too. We had City of Laverne, City of Smyrna, and I believe Eagleville Mayor was with us at the last meeting. Is that right, Pennis? Right. And City of Smyrna has a lobbyist that spends a fair amount of time with downtown Nashville, and is working with their legislative group to grease the skids, as they would say, on getting things that the city of Smyrna needs. So I think that's one thing that's a takeaway I came away with was we have to engage more with our legislative body. And we can't, if we want legislation written in January, we can't come in November and jump up and down and say we got to have this. That's not how the game's played. It takes a year to gee-haw back and forth and let everybody understand what we need and show them that we're sincere and what we're willing to do and what trade-offs we might be able to make. But it's going to take some serious changes in the laws and the Powers Acts and private acts. And with the help of some guidance from our county attorney, he's helping us do some homework. But we'll find some ways, but it's not going to happen this legislative term. Or this, we're not going to get into the laws on the books in January and February, I can tell you that.
Is there any more questions? Any questions? Commissioner Cush, thank you. I can only speak to you as personal. Appreciate your hard work on this, and I wish you the best of luck.
It's my pleasure, yes.
Next thing on the agenda is the litigation list. Commissioners, it's on your iPad. Is there any questions?
I liked how short it was, and it seems like you're working harder at that.
Trying, but just as we mentioned last time, we take a few away and seem to add one or two more. It's just the nature of the beast sometimes, but we are working hard.
I saw red in it, that's what I saw.
Red, crossed out and striped.
Crossed out red, yeah.
What about the ones that are red and not crossed out?
Those are the new ones.
Okay, all right.
But we hope to put up a
Make sure you don't
valuable
miss a line.
defense to those.
I hate to ask. How many new lawsuits have come on?
I think two or three.
Yeah.
Three?
Yeah.
Is there any questions on the litigation list? All right, let's move on. Discussion, next thing on the thing is discussing additional meetings with state legislator. Commissioner Cush kind of led into this. This is brought to me by Commissioner McAdoo, and I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Well, we're a fast-growing county, and I agree with Commissioner Cush. I've thought about this for years, and with the new governor that we got on board, he's making policies, putting it out there, seem like on a daily basis. And a lot of it reflects back on us. And I talked to the sheriff department because a lot of things that he's looking at, with mental health and the overcrowding in the jails and all this, is pertaining to us. So one meeting a year, to me, just don't cut it, because we don't have time to include a lot of our department heads with questions to our state legislators. And I was looking at maybe a schedule of why can't we meet with them at least 4 times a year?
Yeah.
At least, and that's once a quarter. And we don't have to have an additional meeting to meet with them. We can meet with them an hour prior to our meeting if we need to. It's not going to be no cost, extra cost to the county. But with everything changing as fast as it's changing, and the representation we need bad, we do need to meet with our state legislators a lot often now. I like to discuss with mine, but you got all these groups now looking at you. If 2 commissioners get together and all this good stuff and talk to somebody, we might be violation of sunshine law or whatnot. That's the reason I would like to make it in a formal request that we meet with these state legislators or whatever once a quarter. Now, I see a lot of good coming out of it myself, because let's say, for an example, they go into their meetings in January, they finish up around April, I guess, and then we got our budget started and we finish up in June, and then we sort of kick off in August. So if we had a meeting with them once a quarter, we can voice our opinion and hopefully get some answers back from them, that will probably help us in our budget process. So I don't know if we need a motion to that effect or not, but I would like to see at least a meeting each quarter with our state legislators, not once a year. I don't know if I need to put it in a form of motion or not.
Go ahead and
You
I'll
can.
second it.
Let me say this real quick while I wrote it. We are meeting January the 6th here at 5:30 with our legislators. My input on this is I absolutely agree. I mean, we need to meet with them more. We need to be able to go over, I mean, it's kind of like we get 9 questions in January.
1 hour.
You know, and then that's about it. And so what I'd like to, I agree with you 100%. So is there a motion to send this to the county commission?
Well, I like to make it in a form of motion that we meet with our state legislators at least once a quarter and forward it to the county commission for approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion to meet once a quarter. We have a second by Commissioner Cush. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, gentlemen. Now we're to other business. Is there any other business?
Can I back up to the business we just talked about? It's just a...
Yes, you can.
Just a question in my mind. When here's the steering committee meets with the legislators 4 times a year. How does that request, who requests that? Does that come from you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
And I would ask the mayor's office to help me as well.
Okay. That was just a curiosity thing. I didn't know how.
We would have, ideally you set an agenda out with an action, list of action items, so they have some idea of what we want.
Oh, don't let them know what we want.
You'll also have,
As McAdoo and Pettis and Robert certainly knows, in the past, in January, sometimes we come up with, 8 to a dozen questions, and maybe you get to 3 or 4 of them in the course of an hour when everybody starts nodding off and they gotta go. So we gotta see you next year.
You know, Commissioner Cush, that's something we may need to discuss too in this meeting, is how we properly handle this.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you 100%. I've only been in 1 year. So I've only been in 1 year. And, I mean, it was all over the place. And you had the questions, and I mean, they just went, then it just kind of got over the way.
sometimes you have time.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think the process is anything. I just like us to kind of be, when we go in there in January, I'd like us to be, set and ready to go.
Mr. Chairman,
You get a...
can I just ask for a clarification on that? Is it with our legislators and steering committee through the mayor's office putting it together? I mean, the steering
Absolutely.
committee and the legilators is who you want to meet with, just like y'all do in January every year. You just want to do it 4 times a year.
Right,
Yes,
right.
yes, sir.
Same outline as
Not the full
January.
commission.
Yeah.
Just the steering committee.
And tell them no grandstanding.
And then everybody can come if they want.
Oh, yeah, we do have a
Yeah.
good turnout. Really do.
Nick, how will that, as far as open to the public or whatever, I mean,
Yeah, I think I did.
notification, so
Yeah, so in the resolution, you probably want to keep it somewhat general, that it's in the best interest of Rutherford County, that the steering committee, meet with state legislatures on a quarterly basis, further, whereas, you get that in there, and it'd be coordinated through the county mayor's office. And then once that occurs, you probably want to do your regular public notice. That way anybody who wants to come can come in here and watch y'all do your thing.
But it's not a public hearing. I mean, it's not a...
Public meeting.
Yeah, I mean, a public meeting, yeah.
Public meeting.
I mean,
Y'all are
it is,
asking
but
the
it is.
questions. Yes.
Yeah, but the public can't speak. Right.
Not unless you suspend the rules.
Yeah, right.
Any other business? I have been asked to tell everybody that the 2019 Chili Cook-Off, November 8th, from 11 to 1 p.m. at the inner circle of Public Square. There will be prizes and trophies for the best chili, best hot chili, and booth.
that's right.
Is there any other business? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Mr. Irving, second. We are adjourned.